Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Here's your host, Representative Rick Crawford.
Hey, a good day to you. Welcome, and thank you for joining us again for another installment of Tune In AR1. And you may notice we're in different surroundings. We are coming to you from the district office in Jonesboro, and I want to talk about what we've been doing in August throughout the district. Now, you remember that our last installment I talked to you, we were getting ready to leave Washington and head home for what they call the August recess, which implies playtime. In fact, it has been anything but playtime. We've been very, very busy through the month of August, and we'll continue up until Labor Day before we return to Washington. When we come back, I'll give you just a few items that we've been covering as we've been out in the district. We'll be back right after this. And we're back once again. Welcome to Tune In. And as I said, we've been pretty busy in the month of August. And some of the things that we talked about in the previous installment, we've actually been very hands-on with those issues. Believe it or not, they have some relevance here at home, as most of the federal policies that we talk about and deal with do. And one of the things that I talked to you about was Iran. And so I had an opportunity, as I said, we were going to make that an issue. Obviously, you heard how I feel about the Iran nuclear agreement. So I had the opportunity to meet with the Consul General of Israel. His name is Eitan Levan, and he actually resides in Houston, covers the southwest region of the United States. And we met in our Cabot office in the earlier part of the month. And another individual that was present there was Harry Ehrenberg, who is a longtime leader of the Jewish community here in Arkansas, and he actually arranged the meeting, so thank you, Harry, for that. But as you can imagine, we talked about the Iranian nuclear deal, and as you can also imagine, the Consul General does not support the Iranian nuclear agreement, as I do not as well. So we agreed on that, and it was a very short conversation about that. All the things that we talked about, we pretty much lined up with. But here's where the thing kind of took a little bit of an unexpected turn, is the Consul General took a real interest in water. And by water, I'm talking about agriculture application and irrigation projects. And as you may or may not know, the Israelis have been very innovative with their use of water as it applies to agriculture. And the evidence of that is that if you've ever been there or you've ever been in that region, you know that Israel is sort of this little strip of green, productive land, and it's surrounded by a very arid geography. And so it makes for an interesting patchwork quilt, as you can imagine. But Israel is very productive agriculturally, and they've been innovative on things like drip irrigation. And so he had a real interest in two particular projects that were going on in the district that most of us are familiar with. One of them is Biomeda, and the other is White River Irrigation Project. Two big projects that are geared toward ag irrigation, but not solely. In fact, they're dual purpose. One of them is obviously to utilize surface water more efficiently, but the other is to allow for the aquifer, the Sparta aquifer and the alluvial aquifers, to recharge. And those aquifers serve some pretty major metropolitan areas as municipal water supply. And they're not recharging adequately. These projects will relieve the pressure from those aquifers and allow them to sort of recharge at a more rapid rate, because right now they're being somewhat depleted. These irrigation projects will serve to alleviate that depletion and also be a much more energy efficient use and through movement of water on the surface as opposed to bringing it up from the ground. So he was very interested in that, so much so that he's invited me to come and look at some of their projects. They want to come, their ag team. They have an ag attaché that wants to come to Arkansas and view those projects, and then we've made arrangements, hopefully, for the ag attaché to speak to the Arkansas State University Soil and Water Conference coming up. Usually I think that's in around February or something like that. So very interesting. We met to talk about Iran, which we did, but we ended up talking about water resources, and I thought that was a very interesting turn. Mr. Levan, Consul General Levan, very friendly individual, and we really hit it off. So hopefully we'll be working with them in the future on some of these projects. We're looking forward to that. So we go from Iran to water, and we kind of stick with water because later in the month, it's only been Well, it was actually right around that same time. I went down to Memphis to meet with Mississippi River Commission for their annual low water inspection, which brings this group, the board members that preside over the Mississippi River Commission. Major General Michael Ware is the president, Corps of Engineers. He's the commander of the Mississippi Valley Division. Sam Angel, a great guy from down in Lake Village. He's been involved in this and other projects, and a great leader from southeast Arkansas. R.D. James from around New Madrid, another great guy who we love working with. Dr. Norma Jean Matai from down in New Orleans, another one of the civilian members. And then Admiral Glang he's from NOAA, and General Kaiser from the Corps of Engineers, along with General Hill, also from the Corps. We spoke to them for about 5 or 10 minutes about some of the issues that we face, things about flood control, obviously, and how important the river is, and dredging our ports and so on. But I took the time during that meeting to address the issue of the chemical release from the gold mine, the Gold King mine in Colorado. It's affecting 3 states. In fact, what's happened is the EPA essentially released chemicals into the Animas River. Now that's on course to dump into Lake Powell. Just the toxic chemicals, things like arsenic and other things that were released, it was so bad it literally turned the river orange, and in different varying shades of yellow and orange, but it certainly shouldn't look, and water shouldn't look that way. Upwards of 1 million gallons. And here's the point. The EPA has been so focused on WOTUS, Waters of the U.S., and their expansion of power, which I would say is a huge power grab, the administration's overreach. They've been so focused on that they have neglected their core mission to protect the environment with the authority that they do have under the Clean Water Act. So I gave that some thought, and I really think it was appropriate to call for the resignation of EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy, and nothing's being said or done. You're not hearing anything from the environmental groups. And so let's put this in perspective. If a farmer happened to release some 2,4-D into the Cache River in any measurable significant amount, and the EPA found out about it, that farmer could possibly lose their farm. Certainly they would be fined and maybe even be a prison sentence involved in that. I don't know. But you can bet that the EPA would not ignore that. However, we see millions of gallons, or upwards of 1 million gallons of liquid infused with all manner of noxious chemicals, so much so that the river literally turned colors, and nobody's even lost their job over that. And so what we see is a real inconsistency with the EPA, whose core mission is to protect the environment. That's what they're supposed to do. And yet they have failed miserably. I have called for the resignation of the EPA administrator. I don't know that matters. It probably, she probably isn't even aware that I've made such a statement. But I will say this, we are going to keep on pushing back against the EPA because we think WOTUS was a gross overreach, and we think that they took their eye off the ball, and this is the evidence of it. They're supposed to be protecting the environment, not expanding their power, and they failed miserably on that one. And that was the point that I made when I went down to the Mississippi River Commission, because the Corps is brought into the WOTUS regulatory regime, and they're a part of it. And I can tell you, I'm not going to mention any names, but I will say this, that the Corps is not happy about that. Now, there may be some at the higher levels, but the folks who are charged with executing the Corps of Engineers mission on the ground are not happy with their new role in what I call the regulatory triad that is WOTUS, or Waters of the U.S. So I hope you understand my perspective on that, but the EPA has really, really messed up on this one, and I think there needs to be, in fact, we do have some a movement to request. In fact, I believe we will see an investigation on the part of from the Inspector General, and it's been turned over to the GAO office, and hopefully we'll get some accountability on these and other issues with the EPA. But that's really got to stop. So, in keeping with that theme, that was, I thought, a very productive meeting, and in keeping with that, we organized our Ag Pilot fly-in. Now, I mentioned that in our last installment. Ag Pilots, aerial applicators, whatever term you like to use. Some just call them crop dusters. It's kind of an old, antiquated term, but that's, most people are familiar with what they do. But we had a gathering. I think there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 ag pilots that literally flew into Stuttgart to talk about the issues they face. And one of the biggest issues, certainly EPA is burdensome because they're applying chemicals, and they have to have restricted use pesticide certification and all those kinds of things that go along with applying chemicals to crops. But they've also got the extra regulation from the FAA. So they're dealing with the EPA, and they're dealing with the FAA, and they're dealing with OSHA, and they're dealing with the Department of Labor and all these other things. But one of the things that we wanted to bring them together for was to address the issue of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, or what we commonly call drones. And we see the proliferation of drones for ag application. Now, again, I don't want to get people upset that we talk about ag a lot in this district, but the reality is, it's our number one industry, hands down, in the state as well as certainly in this district. So we do spend a lot of time on these ag issues, but this is one that we really wanted to get right. And so we brought these two groups together, which you think would be diametrically opposed. As it turns out, we've been able to find a common ground with drone users, which most of the time are farmers, and they have consultants that are using these for precision agriculture application, and aerial applicators, because they're all using the same airspace. So there has to be some cooperation there. And my position has been, and it's been very well received by both parties, is that we need to figure out a way to standardize use of drones and the effective airspace that is shared by ag pilots, and regulate within the industry, because if we don't, we're basically asking the federal government to come in and take ownership of that problem. We don't want to see that happen. They don't know what our needs are, and they'll regulate from their perspective. So anytime you don't take action on your own within your industry, I think you're almost inviting trouble. But what we want to do is lay down a template to help establish a working protocol between these two groups, because ultimately they share the same customer, and that's the farmer. So we've come together with a working group to devise a protocol that we think will hopefully set the standard nationally and try to push back against any federal regulation, because anytime you're asking the feds to come in, you're really asking for a lot of headache that you don't want, whatever industry you're in. And so I thought this was maybe one of the most effective, productive meetings we've ever had, particularly on agriculture, with respect to action and doing some things here at home, and not waiting for the federal government to come in and offer solutions and offer regulatory schemes and so on, but taking action to work together to address a common issue. I'm really proud of these two groups. We are going to have crop consultants, farmers, University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension representatives. I believe we'll have a Farm Bureau representative, and of course ag pilots at the table in this working group. It's happening so fast that we'll meet again with them before the August break is completed. So we'll be on track to actually develop this template, this protocol of operation, interoperability between the UAV operators and the ag pilots. So I'm really proud of those groups that they've come together and been able to willingly work together to address a common problem and really kind of do it in a proactive way. So we've been busy, as you can see, in the August break. Haven't taken much of a break from the workload. And again, want to congratulate my staff, because they're with me every step of the way, all the work that they do, not only in D.C., but here in the district. It just, work really never stops. Thank you for being with me again. When we come back, I'm going to make a special announcement. I'll tell you about it right after this. Hey folks, Congressman Crawford here. I know how difficult dealing with federal agencies can be. If you're having problems working with a federal agency, my office is here to help you. Just Google Congressman Rick Crawford and you'll find our website. Once you do, click on the Serving You tab at the top of the toolbar. Under the Serving You tab, you'll find a list of federal agencies that I can help you with. Anything from housing and urban development to the IRS to passport services to the Social Security Administration. When you click the links, you'll get access to information that can help. If you need more specific assistance, you can always call my office in Jonesboro at 870-203-0540. I have got a special communication I want to extend out to a young lady who I wouldn't ordinarily extend birthday wishes because, we've only got 750,000 constituents, and if that's what I did, I'd never do anything else but extend birthday wishes. And so typically I don't do that, but this one's special because it's the 100th birthday. Edith Gates Brady. She is in Peach Orchard, Arkansas. She will turn 100 years old on September 4th, and that is a huge milestone. And she plans to celebrate by wearing high heels to her birthday party, so we're looking forward to that. She moved to Peach Orchard as a 10-year-old child, moved there from Michigan back in 1925, graduated as salutatorian of her class from John J. Pershing High School. She married Lloyd Elvin Brady in 1934, and they have 6 children, 5 sons and 1 daughter. Now, interesting career path for Mr. Brady. He was a city manager. And so as a result, she entertained folks all over the country in a variety of public and political functions in places like Hazel Park, Michigan, Trinidad, Colorado. She's been in Oregon and California, 2 or 3 places there. And so her husband then eventually retired to Arkansas to raise cattle at the Sugar Bush Ranch near Success, Arkansas in 1963. And she has 13 grandchildren, 13 great-grandchildren, and 5 great-great-grandchildren. A lifetime member of the Baptist Church, she served as deputy treasurer of Clay County, Arkansas for 16 years. And here's one of my favorite parts of her history. She is an avid St. Louis Cardinals fan, and I love that because I am too. So, Miss Edith, thank you so much for the opportunity to wish you a happy birthday, and I wish you many returns of the day. Have a great one, and thank you all for joining us for Tune In, and we'll be back. Stay tuned in, and we will too, and we'll stay in touch with you. Thank you for joining us.
I left Nashville